Welcome to The Big Puzzle, brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project. And here is your host, Barry Prince.
Thanks, Roger. Well, good evening, folks. And today is March 13th, 2014. This is Legal Hunter, host Barry Prince. And I want to thank you for letting us in here tonight. When I started my radio shows here, not even a year ago, my objective was to bring intellectual people on the radio that provide information that my limited intelligence or level of memory allows me to bring. Today, it's an honor to be joined by Dr. David Bruce Allen. Has quite a history as a member of the International Cannabis Research Society, and I'm going to let Dr. Allen tell you a little bit about his history and what he's been doing, some of the run-ins he's had with the law, and exactly what he's doing right now. He is in Sacramento, California. Good evening, Doctor, and thank you for joining me.
Good evening, Barry. How you doing?
Good, bud. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm here to talk about the endocannabinoid system, and I want people to know that this discovery of this system that uses cannabis to control your body's functions was discovered about 30 years ago. And they found out that the body makes these chemicals like cannabinoids. They're called cannabinoids, and they're endogenous. They're made by the body, so they're called endocannabinoids. And your body uses these to control virtually everything that occurs in your body's physiology. And we didn't realize the significance of this discovery 30 years ago when we first discovered it, but as more knowledge is learned about it, it's quite complex. It's more complex than rocket science, and it has to do with these protein receptors that are on cell walls. There's these proteins that go across every cell wall that you own, and they're shaped in a particular configuration and they act as a lock. And chemicals float around in the blood system, and they latch onto these protein receptors like a key. And once they latch onto this key and lock thing, they open up a door that causes physiologic stuff to happen in the cell. And so this is real complex science, and so they found out that insulin binds onto insulin receptors, and it causes insulin stuff to happen in the cell. Estrogen binds onto estrogen receptors, testosterone receptors, opiate receptors, all the other hormones have these receptors. And then the endocannabinoids bind onto cannabinoid receptors, and there's a couple of different type of receptors. And the importance of all this is this. These receptors seem to control whether you get diabetes or not. They seem to control whether you can get cancer or not. They seem to control whether you survive a heart attack or a stroke or not. And really this control mechanism for physiology is really the key to life. These endocannabinoids are essentially the key to life, and they are the fountain of youth because they stop strokes, they stop heart attacks, they stop diabetes, and all of this is proven by U.S. patents. Dr. Sanjay Gupta came out a couple of days ago with Weed 2, which is a breakthrough in mainstream media where they actually tell the truth about the miraculous effects of the endocannabinoid system.
Yeah.
But he really fell short. I was really amazed and really appreciated all the stuff he did and what he said, but he really fell short, even though what he said was groundbreaking. And he didn't say anything about how cannabis stops cancer, and he didn't say anything about how cannabis is a nutraceutical. And what that means is a nutraceutical is something that you eat that doesn't hurt you, that causes you to have good health. So vitamins are kind of nutraceutical, but cannabinoids are super nutraceuticals because there's studies that show that if you use cannabinoids for 20 years or more, that the incidence of diabetes is 66% less. And there's no chemical on earth, there's no pill that you could take that will decrease the incidence of diabetes even 5%.
Wow.
So this is like a miracle that you can take a substance and decrease the incidence of diabetes. Now, just this one aspect of cannabis, if we don't even talk about anything else about cannabis, diabetes is such a major insult on humanity that people just don't understand how deadly diabetes is. It causes people to lose their eyesight, they lose their kidneys, they lose their legs, and they have heart attacks and all kinds of stuff. And just decreasing the incidence of diabetes by 66% would make a major difference on the people that are going to dialysis from diabetes-related kidney disease. And so the fact that cannabis decreases diabetes by 66% is a major insult if you own a dialysis company. So the people that provide medicines for diabetes and the testing kits and all the other crazy stuff that diabetes causes, if that was decreased by 66%, can you imagine what kind of a medical impact that would make on humanity, and not just the financial cost, the suffering that would relieve is immeasurable.
That's why we're here, doctor.
Now, that's just one study. Now there's other. And I want to make sure people, if there's any questions, I would like to give my email so people can contact me. It's Cali215doc@gmail.com, CALI215DOC@gmail.com. And if you email me, I'll try to send you some copies of some of these articles. You should look up U.S. Patent 2007-009-9987A1. That's treating or preventing diabetes with cannabidiol. You should look up this patent, therapeutic uses of cannabidiol compounds, U.S. Patent 2010/0158973A1. And this is a really amazing patent. And it shows that a heart attack is decreased, the size of a myocardial infarction is decreased by 66% by cannabidiol. And this is an amazing thing. And what this means is, in the future, when the heart surgeon does coronary bypass on your grandma, when they put the cross clamp on the aorta, they're going to be given IV soluble cannabidiol to your grandma, and it will decrease the chances of her having a heart attack during the bypass.
Wow.
And they're talking about, in this same patent, they talk about using coronary stents coated with cannabidiol. So these cannabidiol stents will prevent restenosis inside of a stent. Now, what happens is when a cardiologist sees a patient, they take them up to the cath lab and squirt some dye in their coronary arteries, and if they find a blockage, they put a balloon in it and open the balloon up a little bit, and then put a stent in and expand the stent, and the stent keeps that artery open. But the major complication from that procedure is over time, these arteries reach the nose back over. And it's caused by a bunch of factors, but it's caused by this stuff that your body secretes called vascular endothelial growth factor, VEGF. And VEGF is an important compound because cannabidiol inhibits VEGF. And the first time I realized about this, about cannabidiol and VEGF, was there was a study that showed that people that had brain tumors, gliomas, that if they took cannabidiol, it decreased, it stopped the VEGF and inhibited blood vessels growing into the tumor, and it killed the tumors by this mechanism. And so what a cannabidiol basically starves the tumor for blood supply, and the tumor dies. And it's very effective. This is the same, these gliomas. Ted Kennedy died of a glioma. And, his family was built on the alcohol industry. And he got this glioma, and he could have taken cannabidiol to help his glioma, but his previous history of being in the alcohol, they're so afraid of cannabis that they denied this treatment to Ted Kennedy. And he was even having seizures. He could have had cannabidiol to help his seizures. But these people were so ignorant and so afraid of cannabis that they denied Ted Kennedy this life-saving medicine.
Wow. Well, Doc, it's been demonized in our society for how many years now? And I'm going to reiterate one thing you said there. Every study that I've looked at diseases, disorders in the human body that are being treated right now with cannabinoids are showing either incredible relief of symptoms or absolute abolishment of symptoms. I asked Roger Landry to join us tonight, Doctor, and he has to leave in a few minutes. And I was just going to invite Roger to join us and make a few comments before he has to leave. He is the founder of the Liberty Beacon Project in America here, and I know he wants to get a few words in before he has to leave. Roger, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing great, and your guest is absolutely spellbinding because a lot of the positive of cannabis is so buried today by the pursuits of big pharmaceuticals. What I'd like to ask you, Dr. Allen, is just as a result of the sway and the influence that big pharma has in this country, especially the political clout they have and the inroads they have into our political system, a lot of bought and paid for people throughout our healthcare system. Are you seeing a major, well, let's put things into perspective. If you could reduce heart attacks or heart disease by 66%, if you could reduce the incidences of diabetes by 66% or more, you would take from their coffers hundreds of billions of dollars. Are you seeing the pushback, and to what level are you seeing it, and what can we do to overcome this?
Well, this war is over. There's a lot of battles that are still going to be fought, but the war is basically over because of the internet. The internet has exposed the truth that was hidden by prohibition. And so Sanjay Gupta coming out last week, he's doing that basically because he's wanting to set Patrick Kennedy is a big outspoken critic against cannabis, and he wants to restrict cannabis. He's acknowledged that cannabis is a medicine, but he wants to restrict it so that you have to have an armored truck to give it to you, and make all kinds of laws. So they're still against it, but. So Gupta kind of let people know that, well, there's some evidence that the cannabis helps seizures. And actually, I was real proud of Gupta. Dr. Gupta talked about political refugees. And I've been saying this for a long time because I consider myself a political refugee. I escaped from the draconian laws in Mississippi to come to California to escape political repression so I could use a medicine that I see fit. And they mentioned that there were a lot of people that were immigrating or refugees coming from Florida and Oklahoma and all kinds of places to Colorado so they could treat their kids that were having seizures because of it. Now that this information about cannabis helping kids with seizures, anybody that has a kid with a seizure is on top of that information now. And
well, Dr. Allen, it's more than just interstate. What we're
right.
seeing is so many people leaving the country. We have people like Dr. Vickers who has to set up a clinic in Baja, Mexico, in order to cure people that could just as easily be cured without the cost of the travel and everything else to another country. When you tell me that in order to save my life, I need to leave the country that brags and boasts the best medical system on the planet, that's utter tyranny, my friend.
It's unbelievable. And here's the question that I like to pose to any pot prohibitionist. I dare you to justify restricting the scientific study of cannabis. How can you justify restricting the scientific study? There's no justification for that. And the CSA Control Schedule Act was specifically set up to prevent scientists from studying cannabis. That's what its main intent was. Because the truth was, cannabis was already illegal. The CSA classification just made it to where physicians couldn't study it. So, and what I would like to do is I would like to get in front of politicians with a microphone and put them on camera and say, how can you justify restricting scientific study on cannabis? Because they say, well, we don't know how much dose you should give. And the truth is, people are using this, they're growing in their backyard. They're using it, and it's not causing them any harm, and they're finding great benefit. You don't really need a lot of direction to benefit from cannabis. Stupid people can benefit from cannabis.
Just imagine.
That was a good comment.
Just imagine if we spent all the money that we spend on wars on research on cannabis, boys. I'll tell you, the world would change radically.
Just imagine if we spent all the money on developing the upside of cannabis that we spend on keeping it illegal and keeping it from the mainstream public. If we took that money, the drug war, the money spent on the drug war in this country by our country is tens of billions of dollars every year. And all it's doing is restricting a lot of us from better health. It's not accomplishing anything else. We lost the drug war a long time ago in this country.
But people don't understand the drug war is not about drugs.
Very true.
The drug war is only about making money off of and controlling the people and profiting from that control. It's not about drugs. It's not about marijuana. It could have been used. Marijuana is a good target. But it's about, they want the ability to go in your car and search your car with probable cause. And even if you don't use cannabis, cannabis laws are used against you. They restrict your freedom that you don't even know. So I would like to, I did a study this last summer, and what I did was I called all the medical schools in the United States, and we talked to the directors of the curriculum for the medical students, and we asked them the following questions. The Department of Endocannabinoid Science, do you have a director? Do you teach the endocannabinoid science as a organized course? Or do you even mention it in any ancillary courses like pharmacology, pathophysiology, or neuroanatomy? And the answer was No American college has a department or director. Nobody's teaching it as an organized course, and only 13% even mention it to the medical doctors that graduate this year. So what that means is there's political repression of the education of our doctors to the key for all physiology. So a doctor not knowing about the endocannabinoid system is kind of like a doctor not knowing the nervous system or the circulatory system. It's so important. This is the key to life. If your doctor doesn't have a working knowledge of the endocannabinoid system and the ability to manipulate it by giving you exogenous cannabinoids, then your doctor's not going to be able to help you. And so medicine is going to change completely. The majority of the medicines that you currently see on TV that are in the pharmacopoeia are going to be trashed. And
Amen.
the majority of medicines in the future will be compounds with cannabis. Now they'll still use aspirin, but even aspirin, we didn't know how aspirin worked for the longest time. Even when I was in medical school, they didn't know the mechanism of action for aspirin. We find out that actually aspirin inhibits this enzyme that degrades the endocannabinoids. So if it inhibits the degradation of your own body's endocannabinoids, that means your body's endocannabinoids get built up, you have more of them. So the mechanism of aspirin is it slows your own endocannabinoid destruction, and you just feel more endocannabinoids, and you get pain relief by that mechanism. So aspirin manipulates the ECS.
Yeah,
Crazy.
Roger has to leave us now. Roger, did you want to make a comment before you leave, buddy?
I sure do. Dr.
Sorry
Allen, the Liberty Beacon Project is very, very proud to have you here. This is information people need to know. And I appreciate you, Barry, letting me come in and at least make a couple of comments. Dr. Allen, thank you so much for being a guest on Barry's show today. And anything the Liberty Beacon Project can do to assist, to get a word out, you please let us know. And thank you for your conversation.
Well, thank you, Roger. I appreciate it.
Good night, all.
Thank you,
Good night.
Roger, for joining. Now go ahead,
So-
Doc. I'll let you continue.
Yeah. So we're finding out that the endocannabinoid system controls seizures and controls spasms, and really many of the diseases that we now call, for instance, irritable bowel syndrome, will in the near future be found to actually have problems in the endocannabinoid system. And so there'll be an enzyme defect in either the production or degradation of your endocannabinoids, and they'll be able to fix this problem by either fixing that enzyme problem or giving you exogenous endocannabinoids or exogenous cannabinoids, and they will fix a lot of these problems. So irritable bowel syndrome may in the future have a different name based on the defect in the endocannabinoid system. So we're really in the infancy of this science, and it reminds me, I learned a long time ago, because I'm a surgeon, about this guy named Dr. Semmelweis. And Dr. Semmelweis was an obstetrics doctor, and he found out that he did deliveries of babies, and the doctor's hospital that delivered the babies had a really high mortality. As much as 30% or more of the women having births there died. Of birthing children there died after the birth. And there was another hospital that was close to them, and that hospital had a real low mortality, and all the births there were handled by midwives, not doctors. And actually, it got so bad that women used to plead to get down on their knees, please don't send me to the doctor's hospital, because they were dying. And so what happened was they were doing an autopsy on a patient to try to figure out what killed her, and this one doctor cut his finger, and 3 days later died of the same thing that the lady died of. And so Dr. Semmelweis they didn't know about bacteria back then. And everybody was dying. All they knew was dying. And so they couldn't figure out why they were dying. So they're trying to alter their diet and all kinds of crazy things, but they didn't know why. But after this, he made an epiphany that there was some kind of nastiness in that wound that transferred to the doctor and killed him. And so he figured if you wash your hands, that after you do, because what the doctors would do, they would do autopsies and then go directly from the autopsy to deliver babies. And so he made this policy that you had to wash your hands in this chlorine lime solution. And he forced all the doctors in the hospital to do it, and the doctors hated it. And what they did was they ran him out of town, because they were smarter than him and they knew that this was a stupid thing. And later they found out through the germ theory that he was exactly right. And that's what's happening now. People are trying to suppress the science of this hand washing because they didn't know about bacteria, and they had to figure out, they had to get more sophisticated techniques to learn about bacteria before they realized what they were dealing with. And the same thing is going on now. We think we're pretty smart as doctors, and we know about the anatomy, we know about the nerves and the vessels and the muscles and the liver and all that. But we really don't know what controls it all, because we're finding out that the control is something we can't see. You can't see it even with a microscope. You can't see it. This is submicroscopic stuff. So if you look at a cell with a microscope, you couldn't see these cell receptors. And so they had to develop special techniques of tagging these receptors to even find out where they were. So this is a completely new science, and it's real super complex because it involves the spatial arrangement of a protein latching on to a receptor protein in a key and lock fashion. And if the protein is not shaped right, the key doesn't fit the lock. And so right. there's a lot of ways that you can cause error in this highly complex system. So truly, it's more complex than rocket science. And we're on the brink of this.
Right, and that's why research is so vital, Doc, because there is so many different strains of cannabinoids, so many different effects they have on the body. And like I said, I've just really in the last 3-4 months here been reading the reports, and it just blows my mind, Doc. What research is very good right now.
Right. Now, one thing I wanted to say during this talk today was I wanted to talk about the nutraceutical value of cannabis and the difference between THC and THCA, the acid varieties of the cannabinoids. And the reason why this is important is this. The plant actually doesn't make THC, the stuff that gets you high. It makes THCA, tetrahydrocannabinolic acid. And the acid form doesn't get you high, and it has great medicinal value. Antioxidant properties. So THC or THCA is 100 times more antioxidant properties than THC. And in addition, THCA doesn't get you high. So we're finding out that the marijuana plant produces this THCA. If you ate the marijuana plant fresh, it won't get you high, and it will have great antioxidant effects on you. So in the near future, you're going to be given cannabis products probably in cereals, in cold cereals, and your family will eat it, your children will eat it, and they won't have ADHD. Grandma will eat it, and she won't have a heart attack or a stroke, and it will protect her from diabetes, and it won't get her high just as long as you don't heat it. Now, when you heat cannabis, whether you smoke it or you cure it, what happens is it blows off CO2, it decarboxylates, and it changes THCA to THC. That does get you high. So when you cook cannabis in a cookie or a brownie, it gets you high. If you heat it, so you have to decarboxylate it to get you high. If you don't decarboxylate it, it won't get you high, and it will stop diabetes. So in the near future, people don't understand this. Since you can't kill yourself with it, you can't even harm yourself with it. People will be eating this on a daily basis, and it will prolong their lives. It will stop diabetes. It will prevent them from having a heart attack or stroke. It prevents atherosclerosis. People don't even realize that. There's a U.S. patent that proves it stops atherosclerosis. So who wouldn't want to take this, especially if you could eat it and it won't get you high? So that's what Patrick Kennedy needs to know is this is more than just a medicine. It's a nutraceutical. It can't hurt you, and nothing stops diabetes like this. And so I call on Patrick Kennedy and every other congressman to immediately stop the prohibition on scientific research on cannabis. They need to deschedule cannabis or make a special amendment that cannabis can be studied freely without restriction by legitimate scientists in the United States.
Cool.
So
Doc,
they can't. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm just hoping this little conversation we have today inspires people to do exactly what you say, to approach their senators and their congressmen and make sure that they understand people's position. This radio show today is allowing us to share this information with people, and I hope it impacts people the way it's impacting me. Doc, go ahead.
Well, that's right. They should call their senators and tell them that this is a nutraceutical that stops diabetes and stops strokes and heart attacks, and there's patents that prove this. And so we need to start studying this, and they need to call their medical schools and ask the directors of the curriculum, why aren't you teaching this to the doctors?
Exactly.
What's causing this? Why are you not teaching this to the doctor to treat me? Why shouldn't they know about this control system? So
exactly. It has to be made knowledge, and like I said, Doc, the more people that become aware of what we're talking about today, the more results we'll see. Sorry, I got noise in my background here. Sorry, guys.
I do too. It's not from my end though.
My neighbor's got a motorcycle going.
Okay. Now, Roger asked me about what kind of other effects that I've seen, and I kind of didn't go over that too well, but the United States government is trying to repress this science, and they're using the medical boards to stop doctors from doing this. And the medical board came after me, and they, since you sign your license that you're going to be a doctor in the state, they have some clause in there that says that they can investigate you by any means necessary, and you don't have a choice. And so what they do routinely do is, and people don't know this, they'll go into your doctor's office with a recorder, and you'll be sitting in the office next to in the patient's in the doctor's office, and they'll be recording any conversation that you have in there. And if the people that work there at the office answer the phone, they also record those phone conversations, and that's against the law. There's federal law and state law against it, but the medical board has this process that they call authorization for surreptitious recording. And they've been doing it for a long time. And the reason they're doing it is because to get a warrant for surreptitious recording is a fairly stringent process, and it's just too hard for the police to comply with. And so they don't usually get warrants for surreptitious recording, but they still do them, and they use them in court. And if your lawyer doesn't know to challenge it, then it just goes unchallenged. And so they did that to me. They sent 3 investigators in. 2 of them had recorders, and they recorded not only my conversations, but patients would call in and give their birth dates and other phone conversations. And I challenged them on it. They sued me because they said I wasn't doing the proper exam for medical cannabis patients, and there was trumped up charges, and I had to fight them by myself because I couldn't afford a lawyer. And I brought up this issue, and I don't think a single lawyer in the state of California has ever brought this issue up, much to their shame, that the state does not have, should not be able to come in and record doctors' conversations without a proper warrant. If they have a warrant, that's fine. But if they don't have a warrant, they shouldn't have this authorization process, which doesn't have any kind of requirements at all on it. So it's basically just a way to get around. It's underground regulation. And so I brought into the court a new term that I coined. It's called constitutional Jim Crow laws. And I got this. Jim Crow law is any law that acts like it's legitimate, it feigns legitimacy, but actually takes away your rights to vote. So a constitutional Jim Crow law is any kind of a law that feigns legitimacy, but actually takes away your constitutional rights. So they can't make a department policy in the medical board that says, oh, well, we can record anything we want and go around the warrant process. So I challenged them on this. I don't know that I'm going to be successful. I have 100 days before they're going to make the decision, but I think I had good grounds to challenge them, and I believe I proved that I did the proper exam on the patients, and no patient was ever harmed, and so I'm awaiting the results of that court hearing.
Can you tell us a little bit about? Can you tell us a little bit of what happened down in Mississippi to you there with the sheriff and his false evidence?
Well, I think the medical board thing up here had something to do with my Mississippi problem. What happened was I was a heart surgeon in Pascagoula, Mississippi at Senior River Hospital. And I had a big practice there, and I bought this big property. It had a large lake on it, 50 acres with about 30 acres of water. And I left there to come to California to start cannabis recommendations because I know the science. And I left the property in the care of my sister. And after I'd been here about 6 months or so, I was already a California resident. Police raided my property, and they said we were growing marijuana there. And what they did was they put photographs of marijuana plants on the newspaper, WLOX, that said this was pot grown on property by Dr. Allen. Well, those photographs were from an unrelated bust and not related to my property at all. And there was no pot found, there was no plants found on my property, no soil, no seed, no pots, no water, nothing in there. We had a room that had some lights and some fans and stuff, but there was nothing in there other than these lights and fans. It was storage. And so the police came in there and they found out that we weren't growing marijuana. what they tried to do is they tried to falsify evidence, and they did several things, but one of them was planting those false photographs in WLOX, and it came out in court, and they admitted in court that they planted those false photographs, and that's what lost the case for them.
Wow.
And what happened was I spent 14 months in prison, and I got out, and they gave me my property back about 12 months later, and they dropped all the charges. And since then, the Drug Task Force has been disbanded because the sheriff was found to be a crook. What happened was, the Drug Task Force is a money-making operation. It's a business, and they are able to seize property prior to court cases, and so they have a lot of power, and they go around seizing people's property. And it was a moneymaker. And there was an argument between two of the detectives. One of the guys was in my house, and what happened was one of the detectives attacked the other detective with a needle and syringe. The details are not real well known. And the other guy said, well, if you do that again, I'm going to hurt you. And he did it again, and he pulled his revolver and he shot into the ground, and it ricocheted and hit the officer in the leg. And what happened was they notified the sheriff of this immediately. And the sheriff tried to hide it. So they hid this information for 6 weeks. And what happened was they tried to avoid hospitalization. So they called another officer from the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics that came over with a medicine kit, and they injected lidocaine into the wound and oversewed the wound, and dug a piece of metal out of the wound. Apparently, came out in court testimony today, actually. So they were trying to avoid these guys going to medical treatment for some reason, most likely because they would have been drug tested. My opinion. So anyway, so the sheriff tried to hide this, and a bunch of other craziness happened. You can look him up, Sheriff Mike Bird. And anyway, he was charged with like 29 felonies in Mississippi and another felony in Alabama. And so he pleaded guilty to 2 of the felonies and got 6 months of house arrest.
Oh, wow.
And he had to resign as sheriff.
Yeah,
and so they had a sheriff.
Go ahead, sorry.
Say again?
I was going to say, Doc, if that happened to somebody else and you're charged with those felonies, you'd be in jail for 5 or 10 years. And what does he get? 6 months house arrest? Bogus.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Doc. Yeah.
So yeah, you should look it up. You could go to WLOX or Mississippi Press and look up Sheriff Mike Bird, and it's a big story down there. And so basically, this guy had 31 felonies. That he pled guilty to one of the charges and got 6 months house arrest.
Yeah.
And all kinds of crazy charges. And but what happens is God made this happen to these people, and they caused the destruction of the Drug Task Force. The sheriff had to resign, and also the guy that ran the jail, Ken Broadus, he had to resign as well. So a lot of these evil people that were hurting people in Mississippi had to resign because of this. And they may not have got their just rewards here in the courts, but they will later.
I agree with you 100%, Dave. And I just hope that this president's set across the country and all these people that are evil and corrupt and standing in the way of this come to the same conclusion in terms that these people did. It really bothers me that that guy only got 6 months house arrest. I mean, the people should be crying out loud about that.
Yeah. Please go on WLOX and look up one of those things and make a comment under that. You can comment under those articles. It's really good for cannabis activists to go on media like this and give an opinion, because this is about the only. They don't really care that we know it's a corrupt system. They're giving this guy 6 months. They know that that's ridiculous, but there's nothing anybody can do about it, so they don't even care. They're real arrogant about it, and people need to see this and say something. If you don't say anything, you're as guilty as they are.
Exactly. It's almost like they're rubbing it in our face, Doc. I mean, it's so in the open now what's going on inside our governments. And of course, all the pushbacks we see against medical marijuana in the world is because of the pharmaceutical industry and the money involved. And once people really start wrapping their heads around that, Doc, this information will really open up some light bulbs in your brains because we are under attack from the pharmaceutical and the government. And this is such a great pushback against them. Dave, thanks for sharing this information with us.
Right. One of the reasons cannabis is illegal is because cannabis opens up it expands your mind, so it makes you question things. Well, why is that? Why is this? It makes you question things that people accept for fact. And so it makes you question your government, and they don't like that. And
they want us dumbed down.
They want us dumbed down.
A lot of people that I have talked to and that are using oil have said this to me, and they said it emphatically, is that their brain works way, way better than it did before. So that alone is great because we need to be able to speak out and think things out and identify what's been going on in our world.
Yeah.
So alone, there you go, man. Bring it on.
There's studies that show that actually you're better if you're stoned in some instances. There's some driving studies that show that there's an NIH study, National Institute of Health, so it's a government study that shows men and women, that shows sex differences in driving performance under the influence of marijuana. And women didn't change at all, but actually men had 1.1 seconds faster reaction times and had 3 times less collisions when they were stoned as opposed to when they were straight. So actually,
you're impaired though.
Being straight and driving, you may be more impaired.
Yet they can pull you over the side of the road.
I don't know the answer to this yet. Yeah.
Oh, it's so ludicrous, Doc. It just gets me laughing. Like, I can pull you over the side of the road. If there's a little odor of marijuana in your vehicle, you're instantly impaired. And under the same jurisdiction and criteria as you're drinking alcohol, well, I'll tell you, Doctor, if you put 6 beer in me and drive me down the road and a couple joints down the road, I'll take the joints any day. Oh, I shouldn't say that on the radio. Excuse me. I'm speaking from other people's experience, of course.
Yes.
Go ahead, Doc.
Cannabis is God's plant. And, when I was in prison, one thing I did learn was I read the Bible 9 times, skin to skin. And on the very first page of the Bible, in Genesis 1:29, it says, and God said, behold, I have given you every green herb on the face of all the earth, and every seed-bearing tree, and the fruit of which shall be for you to eat. And 1:30 says, I've created every green plant for you to eat. Everybody knows that, but what they don't know is Romans 14:2 says, some may eat all things, others who are weak eat herbs. And Romans 14:3 says, let those that eat herbs not despise those that don't, and let those that don't eat herbs not judge those that do. And so God's word says man's law is wrong. You shouldn't be judging people for using herb.
Wow, that says it all, doesn't it? It really does.
Well, I'm proud to find that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Doc, you're right. This plant was put on the earth by our Creator, and it has so many benefits to the human race. If it's implemented back into our society now on a large-scale basis, through industrial use, through our cotton manufacturing, for fibers or fuel, every aspect of our society now could be changed by the implementation of this plant. And right now, Doc, it is so necessary because we are bombarded with chemicals and pollutants every phase of our life, and our immune systems are being compromised. and we see the diseases going right through the roof. And here's the answer right in front of us. And I
And
agree
even more than
100%.
that, all those things, plus it's going to change the empathy that humans have. And that is going to make a major change in the society. I mean, the fact that it changes your empathy is a humongous effect on society.
It can't be any better, buddy. It can't.
And so we should force politicians to smoke pot.
Yeah, before they do anything. This is what you start your day with,
Politicians
guys.
and police are forced to smoke pot.
Well, if they did that, Doc, you know there'd be at least 2 hours of peace on the world. We'd have 2 hours of peace, guys. And what you're saying, Doc, is so true. You know,
Yeah.
we're just facing such corruption and such pollution and such attacks on our health and our world.
Yeah.
And here is such an answer to it all, Doc. And I can't thank you enough for coming on tonight and sharing this info with us, because I'm 100% agree with you, but it is the answer, or one of the answers to our problems.
The title of my article that I wrote is called "Ignorance is Not Bliss," and the reason I named it that is because Dr. Semmelweis used to call all the doctors in his era ignoramuses, because they could not understand that there was something that they couldn't see that was causing major problems, and they could just, they just open their mind, they would have been able to been ahead of the medicine of the time. I mean, we're talking about thousands of people died because of ignorance. Millions of people probably. So I really appreciate you having me on the radio today, and I hope, I'm ashamed to say it, I wasn't really an activist until I was arrested. But once you get arrested, that'll make an activist out of you. Once you go through the court system, I had no idea about the court system. I never did anything bad.
Yeah.
And so it was a shock to me. And I just want to encourage everybody that's listening to this, please do something. Call your senator, call Patrick Kennedy, and tell him you're making a major mistake. This is a nutraceutical. If you had given it to Ted Kennedy, you might have been able to save his life. That's what I want these people to know.
Exactly. You know what, Doc, we're seeing it happen now in the world, that this wave is growing at exponential rates, that people's awareness and knowledge of this incredible God-given wonder to the world is expanding. And all I can say for 2014 is my prayer is that this wave gets big enough that we cover all these evil, corrupt politicians that are standing in the way of this healing thousands and thousands of people, putting thousands of people in a position where they can make a living for themselves, supply us with all our needs and assets. It is right in front of our faces, guys. And like I said, what the doctor said here, I urge you to look at the information, go on the internet, spend a couple hours and read the hardcore facts about the endocannabinoid system and how it works in our bodies. And it will really amaze you, Doc. It really will. Folks,
thanks for learn about the patents, too. Thank you.
Yeah, no, there's so much to learn, guys. And like I said, it only takes a couple hours of your time instead of watching a football game. Go on the internet and just punch up the endocannabinoid system in the human body and try and comprehend some of these things they're telling you. I know it's a very complex system, like the doctor was saying, it's rocket scientist, but it does work. And I've seen it myself personally affect people in my life. It has had an effect on lots of people that I know, and that alone is something that inspires me to carry on with this journey. And I want to thank you again, Doc. It's been a great conversation, and some of the information, I really hope it hits home with people, because this is very, very vital right now that we expand this knowledge base around the planet as fast as we can. Would you like to make a few comments?
If anybody wants a copy of my article, Ignorance is Not Bliss, please contact me at cali215doc@gmail.com, cali215doc@gmail.com, and I'll send you a copy.
Cool. And Doc, I would love to have you back in maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Would you like to join us again for another hour?
Of course. Love to.
Okay, good. We'll look forward to that. And perhaps I can pull in another doctor at the same time that wants to join us in these conversations, and I'm sure you know her. But we'll leave that for now. And like I said, in a couple of weeks, Doc, I'd love to have you back again and carry on with this conversation. Meanwhile,
All
folks,
right.
I want to thank you guys all for joining in tonight, and I hope we've enlightened your mind just a little bit. It's exactly what's going on in the world of the medical marijuana plant. This is so vital, folks. It can cure things that just, it blows my mind. And it really is a hope for the human race and a hope for the future of our children, the hope of this planet. And that's why I'm here and why I'm trying to talk to you with my heart. And I want to thank you again, Doc, for coming on tonight. And I want to thank everybody for lending us an ear and letting us share our thoughts, our souls, and our hearts with you. I hope you join us again next week,
Thank you,
as I promise to have another great guest. And thanks again, Doc, for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking to you, sir. And
All right, God.
God bless
All
you,
right, thanks,
sir.
Barry. Appreciate it.
Keep up the awesome work, my friend. It's just great to have you on tonight, and I've enjoyed this immensely. Thanks again, guys,
Thanks,
and I hope you join us next weekend. I promise to have the doctor back on here in a couple of weeks. Thanks again, and it has been an absolute slice. God bless you all.